Hello and welcome to Brazil for the Rolex 6 Hours of São Paulo race preview brought to you by Le Mans Ultimate, the official game of the FIA World Endurance Championship. We are here at the Autodromo Carlos Pache. I'm Alexa Rendell. I'm joined by WEC expert Sam Smith. And Sam, before we get on to Sao Paulo, we have to talk about an absolutely incredible 24 Hours of Le Mans that we've just had and that has really shaken up the championship standings.
It has, yeah. We're at that point where the championship, Le Mans history, fantastic Le Mans as it was, all the focus now is going to be on the championship and how teams are going to try and build a really consistent set of results to go to Bahrain with. I mean, 9 points now between the number 6 crew and the number 50 crew that won Ferrari its second Le Mans in as many seasons. So it's bubbling away really nicely there, and I think a lot of eyes will be on those points and where the table sits after Interlagos heading into Qatar.
Well, it has been 10 years since the WEC last raced here at Interlagos, and things have changed quite a bit since then. But tell me a little bit about WEC's history here at the circuit.
Well, it's a fantastic heritage here at Interlagos. You know, the Brazilians live and breathe sport, full stop, but actually motorsport, they're heroes from the past. You know, this place is named after Carlos Pache, who was one of the foremost talents of the 70s, drove for Brabham, was the sort of precursor to Emerson Fittipaldi and Senna and Nelson Piquet, and they all did their winning and their, building their legends here at this track. You can feel it. You know, you look at these terraces here, the banks of spectators that will be cheering on Augusto Farfus and Nico Costa as well on Sunday. So they've just got a real passion for motorsport here, and the fact that we're back here after 10 years is a massive boost for the WEC, I think.
And what about WEC's history specifically here? Because we've had the likes of Neil Gianni, Andre Lotterer and Nico Lapierre, all who've won in the top class here at Interlagos, and there aren't many of them who've done that.
That's right, yeah. I mean, it's 10 years. I can't believe it's a decade. You know, and that race will be remembered for Porsche 919 Hybrid's first victory in the WEC, but also for that huge accident that Mark Webber had just around here. Actually, hit the wall, ended up near the entrance to the pits. Was thankfully okay, but one of the defining images of that race. But Mike Conway won the LMP2 class in 2012 as well. It's great to see Mike coming back here and slotting into that number 7 crew once again.
Yeah, looking forward to having him back. But actually, before we started filming, you and I were stood on the grid taking a look around at this incredible circuit and just seeing how unforgiving it really is. What are the major challenges going to be for our hypercar drivers in particular this weekend?
Well, one of them is quite tangible, isn't it? Because I feel like I'm slipping down the
it's
banking here. Our cambers are a bit wrong here, going the opposite direction. But this stretch from the final corner, really, with a couple of kinks coming onto the pit straight, is the key area where you can overtake, really. The Ferradura right-hander, it's like almost a triple apex, long radius right-hander, super tough for the drivers because it's also anti-clockwise. It's one of the few tracks that we actually go to that...
It feels a bit weird, doesn't it, walking this way?
Yep. It's a really tough on the driver's neck, a real physical challenge, but of course the key thing is going to be the traffic. It's how the hypercars are going to get past the GT3 cars. We saw it at Imola, lots of incident. There was quite a few periods of full course yellows and safety cars that come into racing when you're that close on a really short track. This is the shortest track that WEC go to, and that in itself is a challenge for two-class racing.
Well, let's get into it and really deep dive into what we can expect from this weekend. I think it would be wrong of us not to start with the number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsport, our championship leaders, and Porsche leading the Manufacturers' Championship. Podium at Le Mans, consistently good results. Things are looking good for Porsche right now. They've
had a really good season, really strong season. Obviously started with that win in Qatar, but I think it's the consistency. They weren't quite with Ferrari at Le Mans, but they weren't far off, and they did get a podium. They maximised what they had with that package. I see the 963 package actually being really strong here because you've got, particularly on the infield, you've got some really tight corners, and on traction they've made a lot of performance gains compared to last season. So we saw that at Imola in particular, and I think we'll see it again here at Interlagos. I expect Porsche, Toyota and Ferrari, which have been the class of 3 at the top, I expect them to be pretty much the same, leading the field here at Interlagos.
And then to talk about their main championship rivals currently, which is Ferrari, the number 50, making Ferrari do the double at Le Mans, 2 wins, 2 years in a row. They're now coming into this, they've flung themselves into championship contention, but anybody else looking at the rest of their season, that's probably the major highlight of their year. They're going to have to start scoring some consistent points, which they haven't really been doing the rest of the year, haven't they?
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? You know, they've won 2 back-to-back Le Mans. They
Phenomenal.
Get all the headlines. They do a superb job. I mean, you know, the scenes that we saw at the end of Le Mans fully deserved, because Nicholas Nielsen, Miguel Molina and Antonio Fuoco did such an amazing job, were so good in very difficult circumstances and conditions. But now the emphasis is going to be on Ferrari winning non-Le Mans races, because they haven't done that yet. And it's amazing when you think it's, you know, they're a season and a half into their program, they've achieved so much, but they haven't won a race that isn't Le Mans. Obviously, from a points standpoint, it's an amazing result for them that they achieved last month at Le Mans. But I think now they're going to be looking at this WEC title and trying to understand how they can build the consistency that Porsche have had in this first half of the season to mount a championship challenge. I mean, it's easier said than done. You know, there's certain things that, you know, they might find tricky here at Interlagos that aren't necessarily in their control. So therefore, you know, you've got to maximise the points. But certainly from a race challenging point of view, I expect Ferrari to be pretty close to Porsche and Toyota here.
Well, a team that certainly knows a thing or two about consistency is, of course, Toyota, currently sitting third in both the drivers and the manufacturers' standings. The number 7 with that incredibly impressive podium at Le Mans, helping to keep them in that championship contention. Is that perhaps the car to beat out of the two now?
It's difficult to say, because Buemi, Hartley and Hirakawa have been quick, but they've either made some mistakes or just not got the rub of the green, particularly Imola, of course. I think both of them are dangerous, but there may come a point where Toyota, because of the points discrepancy, that Toyota have to make the call.
Start prioritising.
Exactly. You know, that's always a difficult thing to do. It's too early to do that now. I think they'll look at it the earliest probably after Kota.
Okay.
But then they've got their home race at Fuji, which complicates
Everyone wants to win, right?
Complicates it as well. But I think in terms of Toyota's threat to Porsche and Ferrari in particular from the championship, it's definitely there. And actually the performance, although it hasn't been there in the first few races of the season, you know, we saw at Le Mans that they were pretty much the direct competition for Ferrari in the latter stages of that race, and they have the experience. You know, they're one of only 2 manufacturers that have been here before in the previous rules iteration with LMP1. So I see Toyota being a big threat here, and I expect them to be hunting for podiums at the very least.
And let's talk about the rest of the field, because there's quite the points discrepancy between that top 3 and then the rest of the hypercars. They're going to be looking for points, they're going to be looking to make that comeback, but ultimately they've got a lot less to lose in terms of going for a championship fight. Who do we think could be bringing it to that top 3?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you take Le Mans, Cadillac looked extremely strong at Le Mans, but it's a vastly different challenge here at Interlagos. I don't necessarily see Interlagos being a Cadillac track, to be honest with you. I think they'll be looking at maximising a top 6 position here rather than challenging at the front, which is what they did at Le Mans and on occasions in the past as well. You know, in my mind, they've done a superb job. I mean, Alex Lynn was absolutely phenomenal in qualifying.
Yes.
And Earl Bamber, after that really difficult enter the Spa race for Cadillac, came back strongly as well, and they looked like a good package. You know, BMW looked super strong in qualifying, at least at Le Mans, and they've shown that they've got pace on occasion, although they're still learning about that car. So, and they've got a lot of work to do after Le Mans, obviously, a lot of damage to sort out too. So, you know, I see, let's call them cameo performances, getting among those top 3 teams. And I think we've seen that pretty much throughout the season. You know, Alpine had let's face it, a very difficult Le Mans, very challenging Le Mans from a reliability point of view. But again, on one stint or one lap pace, they've been pretty good. I think better than they probably expected. So, you know, you look at those manufacturers, Lamborghini, they got a good finish at Le Mans in their first campaign. So I think all of the ones bubbling under the Porsche, Ferrari and Toyota axis, on their day, they can really trouble the top 3. But can they do it over a 6-hour endurance test? I'm not sure.
Well, actually, you say the endurance test, but the likes of Isotta Fraschini, Lamborghini, those were cars that weren't actually entirely sure they were going to finish 24 Hours of Le Mans. Getting a finish is almost like a win for them. Can they now start being a bit more competitive around these shorter races?
It'll give them a great deal of confidence, I think. Yeah, I think you learn so much at Le Mans anyway, but when the conditions were that difficult, you know, new manufacturers, we talk about Isotta Fraschini, obviously Lamborghini coming in with a completely new package with the SC63. They will learn so much, and they will do so many debriefs. You know, the day of the 1 hour debrief after Le Mans is over, they will allocate days at their facilities, poring over what they can learn for subsequent races. So yeah, I see, Isotta did a very good job in getting to the end of Le Mans. Lamborghini were terrific with a top 10 position, which nobody really forecast. So yeah, they can take a lot of confidence from that, build some momentum and just go on this development journey throughout the rest of the season.
And right, go on Sam, your favourite part of the video, predictions time. You've not been doing too well as of late, not to call you out completely bluntly, but
well,
what are you thinking for our hypercar winners?
Hypercar winners, I think that the favourites will be Porsche, and I think it's going to be super interesting to see if the number 5 crew, who've had, they had some tough races this season. Spa being the prime example with Michael Christensen making that mistake. Knowing Michael Christensen and the quality athlete and driver and professional that he is, I think he'll be aiming to get one over the number 6 crew. But again, when does this sort of team order ethic kick in? Probably too early for that to happen. So maybe it's a kind of last chance for number 5 to really assert some authority, and I'm going to forecast that they'll do that. And I think the number 5 crew, particularly Matt Campbell, Frederic Makowiecki's been excellent this season, but Matt Campbell, the way he's come in and the job he's done, I think this track and the kind of the amphitheatre of Interlagos will really suit him. So I'm going to forecast number 5 for their first win of the season.
But actually, and we haven't mentioned this, there's 5 of those Porsche cars on track here with the 3 from the customer team. The 3 from the customer teams. Could they cause the factory team some problems?
Why not? I mean, absolutely they could. We saw it at Spa. Jota did it at Spa. Could they double up and get another victory? I mean, they're not out of contention in the championship after getting that
good point.
25 points at Spa-Francorchamps. So yeah, they'll always be a threat. They'll always be pushing the Penske Porsche cars. So why not? And we saw again at Spa as well. Obviously, the Proton competition car was, was the fastest Porsche. Yeah. I mean, it was just a fact of that weekend that in the hands particularly of Julian Anlauer, that was a really potent proposition. So they will be in the conversation come Sunday, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Sam, and thank you so much for joining us. It's really incredible as you walk through this track. You can feel the history, you can feel the excitement, and I just feel like something special is brewing for this weekend. We have our LMGT3 preview available for you to watch as well, so make sure you check that out. And don't forget to tune into the race on Sunday. It's going to be one you do not want to miss.